Welcome. Today's deep dive takes us somewhere pretty interesting. We're looking at this intersection of ancient biblical prophecy and a hypothetical crisis from June 2025, focusing on Iran's nuclear program.
Yeah.
We've got sources like Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, even the Book of Enoch, plus analysis from Dr. J. Barton Payne. We're aiming to give you a shortcut to really getting a handle on this.
Right. And our mission, if you like, is to see if there's any non-random content here, coherent patterns in prophecy that might shed light on these, hypothetical modern events.
Offering a different perspective.
Exactly. A perspective on how history might be unfolding.
Okay, so let's ground this first. Talk about the scenario our sources lay out for June 2025. It starts with Operation Rising Lion.
That's right. An Israeli military campaign supposedly launched June 13th. The target, Iran's nuclear program, its military infrastructure.
And it didn't stop there.
No, it escalated significantly. By June 21st, the scenario involves the U.S. launching massive precision strikes. We're talking specialized bunker busters hitting key sites, Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan.
Wow. Okay, so the U.S. declared them completely and fully obliterated. That sounds pretty final.
It does, but that's where it gets nuanced. You had the IAEA Director General, Rafael Grossi, coming in with a more, let's say, technical assessment.
What did he say?
He described it as severe damage, crucially not total obliteration. And he suggested Iran could potentially restart its program in, quote, a matter of months.
Ah, okay, so damaged but not destroyed. How did Iran react in this scenario?
Predictably, with defiance. Missile barrages, pulling out of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, making threats about the Strait of Hormuz.
So the outcome is what? A weakened Iran?
Severely wounded, yes,
Yeah.
but still retaining capacity and, crucially, the will to rebuild, making them potentially a much more unpredictable actor going forward.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, connecting this hypothetical back to the ancient texts. Jeremiah 49.35.
Yes. Behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the chief of their might.
And Elam, that's ancient Persia, right? Modern southwestern Iran.
Precisely. And the bow. In ancient times, the Elamites were famous archers, so the bow was their signature weapon, their strength.
So the sources were drawing a parallel. The ancient bow is like modern Iran's.
Ballistic missiles. Their nuclear ambitions. It's seen as the modern equivalent of their chief of might.
So these hypothetical 2025 strikes, hitting missile capabilities and nuclear sites, it's like a direct, almost literal fulfillment of breaking the bow.
That's the interpretation presented, yeah. And it's key that this prophecy in Jeremiah talks about breaking the bow, a judgment, but not necessarily total annihilation. There's even a hint of future restoration later in the chapter.
Okay, so a purgative judgment, not final destruction. How does that fit with other prophecies like Ezekiel?
Well, it sets the stage, potentially. If you look at Ezekiel 38, Persia, again, modern Iran is described, but as a sort of junior participant. Yeah, part of a larger coalition led by a figure from the north, Gog of Magog, often linked with Russia, that invades Israel when it's dwelling securely.
So the sequence matters. Jeremiah's prophecy, breaking Iran's independent military power.
Could position them perfectly to then join as a lesser partner, this larger alliance described by Ezekiel. It suggests a kind of chronological unfolding. The 2025 conflict could be a precursor.
Right, setting the stage for something else.
Exactly. And you can even zoom out further. Think about Daniel, like Daniel 8, the ram and the goat. It shows God's sovereignty over empires, specifically Persia, rising and falling according to a plan.
And the Book of Enoch, how does that fit?
It brings in a sort of cosmic dimension. The idea that striving for ultimate weapons, this modern bow, could be seen as a form of spiritual rebellion, misusing knowledge linked in Enoch to, fallen watchers, introducing forbidden texts. So divine judgment isn't just geopolitical, it's also against pride, against corruption.
Okay, so bringing in someone like Dr. J. Barton Payne, who focused on systematic interpretation, how would he likely view this hypothetical 2025 scenario?
Payne emphasized literal fulfillment, sequential order, and synthesis, how prophecies fit together. He'd likely look at those strikes on Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities.
The bow.
Precisely. And see it as a direct, tangible, literal fulfillment of Jeremiah 49.35. I will break the bow of Elam. It fits his criteria. It's literal. It seems to happen before the Ezekiel 38 invasion, fitting the sequence, and it reinforces the Bible's overall prophetic accuracy.
Making future events feel more imminent.
That's the implication, yes. It heightens that sense.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive? We've covered a lot of ground.
I think it shows how events that seem chaotic, maybe even random on the surface.
Like a sudden military strike.
Right, they might actually fit into a coherent, perhaps surprising pattern laid out long ago. It suggests things aren't just happening randomly.
So history isn't just spiraling.
Perhaps not spiraling out of control, but moving, maybe inexorably, towards a specific sovereignly guided conclusion, and one that ultimately is presented as redemptive.
That leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. If these ancient prophecies seem to be mapping onto modern headlines with this kind of specificity, even hypothetically, what does that mean for how you understand what's happening in the world, and perhaps what's yet to come?